Everyone, Sam Baxendale here, co-founder of Kinetik Hiring. And in today's Insight on Demand, we're going to be addressing the topic of graduate recruitment and the new normal. A recent study by the Malaysian Ministry of HR identified that on an annual basis there might be 51,000 graduates graduating this year, of which 60% will be unemployed within 1 year. Now, this is a rather worrying statistic, although I might say this is a global problem rather than just a Malaysian issue. But clearly, here in Malaysia, we've got work to do to ensure graduates get into meaningful work inside of a year. Coupled with that, we have COVID. That gives us increased challenges for graduates. That could potentially have a long-term impact to talent sustainability here in Malaysia. The question we want to address today is what can HR and business leaders do to address this challenge? And how can business leaders do more to support talent sustainability generally? So with us today we have Sumitra Nair from MDEC, who is the head of digital talent development. Thank you, Sumitra, for joining us today. So perhaps to start, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your role within MDEC. That would be very interesting to start.
Great, Sam. Thanks first of all for having me on the video. So I look after digital talent development at MDEC, and what this entails is basically trying to work to build an ecosystem of talents that can meet the requirements of the digital economy, i.e. digital tech sectors. And when I say digital economy, increasingly the economy is becoming digital, right? With COVID, you either have a digital presence or you have to completely rethink your business.
Absolutely.
And so when you talk about digital economy, it's really wide. And so it's when I use the term digital talent, it's not limited to IT, roles.
Yes.
It could be roles that span various sectors and industries.
Yes.
As long as it requires, a certain amount of digital skills, tech skills.
Yep.
So that's what we do, and I've been working closely with various partners in the ecosystem for both the public and private sectors.
Okay.
From the public sector, it has been the Ministry of Higher Education, as well as the Ministry of Education, which deals with the K-12 education. And that's because we strongly believe that a talent pipeline is really important, because as you pointed out, talent sustainability is a big agenda for us as well. But over and above that, we also work with other agencies under the Ministry of Human Resources, Ministry of Youth and Sports and so on, to look at how do we address not just the future talent pipeline, but the current ones. So that's on the public side. And then from the private side, of course, we work with plenty of companies, recruitment companies included, the tech industry obviously is a given, and more even the non-tech companies or corporates who are embarking on their digital transformation journey.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of becoming a horizontal, no longer a vertical. So really, the mandate is broad, but our focus is on digital tech skills.
And that includes graduate prospects as well?
Yes, of course. All across the talent life cycle, from those in the schools to universities to the existing workforce, and even those who've left the workforce. For example, professional women who've left the workforce, become homemakers, want to return back into the workforce. Even those groups, we call them the latent talent.
Okay, thank you, Sumitra, for that. I think on to our first question for the day. Perhaps we could just spend a few minutes talking about why graduate recruitment is so important to any company, and how could it potentially impact the bottom line long term in a positive way?
Yeah, I think it's really critical, which is why even at MDEC we invest our time and focus on building this talent pipeline. Because really, in order to have a sustainable pipeline of talents and leaders for the company, it's really important to start early, in this day and age where there's no cookie cutter sort of a formula to suddenly, creating this group of leaders that you expect in the company. And also because of how things are evolving, it's important to actually have a more long-term view of talent development, and that's where I think graduate employment and recruitment comes into play.
Absolutely. And I guess linked to that, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on how an effective graduate recruitment program can impact some of the challenges we see in the market regarding turnover, for instance. So, if businesses have a strong graduate foundations, that could lead to sustainability in terms of their own staff. Yes.
I mean, definitely. So when we think about it, I think companies need to be more invested, and they need to get involved a little bit earlier in the journey, students' journey, right? Or the entry level talent's journey, right? Often what we find is, at least conventionally, companies would get in, maybe at the final year, or just as the students are graduating, they have career fairs and so on. But increasingly, what we find is that those companies that do really well with their graduate programs are those that go in right in the first year, or even the second year, and start to already identify talents, to start to mold them, to get really involved in what is taught, how it's taught, mentoring, because then by the time you actually take a role in shaping the talent that you want to be able to.
And it sounds like there's a relationship building there as well.
Exactly. I mean, I think companies need to be more invested for the long term, and they need to get in earlier on the student's career journey, the student's journey, right? Rather than sort of to wait at the end of the road upon the student's graduation and sort of take whatever they've got, to get in there earlier, first year, second year, and start molding the talent, start influencing what is taught, how it's taught, mentoring students. So at the end, it's win-win, because for the company, it earns them the mind share in terms of brand, in terms of who they are, but it's also about instilling the kind of culture that you want to get these students to be comfortable in, and you don't wait for that to happen right at the end. You actually go in there and start to influence it from the beginning.
Absolutely, no, that makes sense. So Sumitra, can you talk to us about some of the best graduate recruitment programs you've seen out there, businesses that get it right, and perhaps give us some examples of those?
I think there are quite a few, an emerging number of them. And just to mention a few, people like Intel. For example, they go in at first year, identify the students and bring them through a journey. Of course, we know about the Axiata programs. The other one is, of course, CIMB has got a pretty strong graduate employment program. And as well as even Celcom, Celcom. And what's interesting with these, all these programs, I think what you find in common is, number one, they take a long-term view, right? It's not a quick fix kind of a thing, right? They take a long-term view. They actually have a good structure, in the sense that they make sure that the students get exposed to all the different businesses, and there's some depth. For example, Digi has a Digi apprenticeship program, and they bring in fresh talents to be attached to their CXOs as an apprentice. And that gives them not just the breadth, but also the depth of knowledge, right? So I think programs like that really puts the talent in projects and in situations where they are able to fully experience the culture and what the company is all about. Those end up being better, compared to sort of moving them on a job rotation and a little bit here, a little bit there, and sort of not quite knowing what to do with them in each of the departments. So I think that's where the variances are. And the Ministry of Higher Education also has been encouraging universities to look at university programs that allow a longer attachment or industry program. In the past, when you think about internships, it's 3 to 6 months, right? But now the universities actually allow 1 or even up to 2 years of attachment. So it could be like 2 years in the classroom, 1 year in industry, or 2 years in the classroom and 2 years in industry. And so one of the programs I've seen coming out of UTM, University Technology Malaysia, actually for their data engineering program, right? They have a cohort of, they started with a cohort of about 50 to 80 students, and they experimented with this 2 years in the classroom, 1 year in industry. their students were snapped up, 100% of them.
Right.
Right. And in fact, the industry was saying, give us more of this, because industry is also, finding that it's not enough to have an internship that's just 3 or 6 months. We want them for longer, because then we're able to really sort of get them into under the skin of the company, right? So they're more well prepared to actually continue on with the company.
Yeah. No, it sounds like that practical internship experience can have a real bearing on employability down the line.
Yes, and not just like a 3 month or 6 months or a semester thing, but something a little bit more longer term, a bit more in depth, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's what's needed. But I think in a nutshell, to me, what's most important, what I've seen work, is when the companies take an active role in molding the talent. Right? That seems to be what's working, rather than to wait and expect for a ready-made talent to show up at your door.
Absolutely. So Sumitra, conversely, you've gone over some really successful programs. Could you maybe comment on examples of where businesses might not have got it right, maybe as a learn for other businesses?
I think rather than, yes, of course there are many learnings, but one of the ones that I wanted to point out is really even at the start of the program, in the selection of the students. I think conventionally we tend to, when we, you get lots and lots of applications, and sometimes the easiest thing to do is to filter them by the students' grades, right? But I just want to caution that may not be the best way to go about things, especially in today's world where we're saying we expect graduates to be problem solvers, strong communicators, critical thinkers, and so on. You find that academic excellence doesn't always mean that they have those other skills just as strong. So I would caution recruiters or even the graduate recruitment programs from using academic excellence as a key benchmark to even filter out students. So as a starting point, right?
Or in isolation without looking at the bigger context.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because
that makes sense.
of course today we know that right brain, left brain, hybrid skills we're talking about. We're talking about flexibility, agility. Really, we need to have a more comprehensive way of thinking about the kind of talents that we want to bring into the organization.
Absolutely. So Sumitra, obviously at the moment, we're in quite challenging economic times. The market is gradually getting better, but it's still tough for SMEs in particular, coping in the current conditions. So I'm just wondering, do you have any advice or thought processes for businesses that might be thinking about hiring graduates but might be struggling to come to terms with it? Is there any advice you can give?
Definitely. I think, and it works both ways, right? So when we have been speaking to universities and graduates, we have been telling them that, in current situations, building a portfolio is extremely important. So even if you can't get into an immediate permanent role or a job or an internship, what may be good is to start building a portfolio of projects, right? And so that's where perhaps even getting gigs, right? Short-term projects may make sense, So in MDEC we have an initiative called GLOW, which is the Global Online Workforce Initiative.
Right.
And it's online, so anybody can Google and go join the program. And what it does is it brings together all kinds of gig job opportunities, and if you don't know how to apply or pitch for such jobs, we're actually offering training. So under the Penjana 2020, we have an initiative to help train Malaysians, especially those who don't have jobs, unemployed Malaysians, to pitch and get these project-based kind of gigs. So I think that's a good place, but also increasingly I find that students are starting to be more receptive of even doing volunteer projects, because it helps them to build their portfolio, right? And of course we wouldn't want to be exploiting them, but I think it's it kind of works both ways, to look at what the students' expectation is to help them build a portfolio, but then from the employer's point of view, so you don't always have to give a full term right at the beginning, right? You can sort of ease into the arrangement.
So the
try before you buy if you like.
Absolutely, So sounds like a good solution from both sides for graduates themselves. Looking at different types of deployment outside of just permanent could give a range of options, and similarly for employers, they're less burdened by hiring someone permanently, but they can try before they buy, as you say, and these are options that could enhance opportunities in the current conditions.
Thank you.
So Sumitra, one of my observations looking at the graduate community in Malaysia is there's this kind of perceived mismatch between what you study and what you end up doing. I think there's this sort of adage of unless you're a lawyer or a doctor, you've kind of not made it. And obviously this is something we want to kind of expound a little and create a bit more open-mindedness around to help manage expectations about what you study and what you end up doing. So I'd be really interested in your comments on that in terms of that connection between what you study and what you end up doing, and how can we look at that relationship in a bit more healthy terms?
Sure. Yeah, I get that, Sam. And when I think about it, yes, of course, a lot has been said about skills mismatch, not just in Malaysia, but globally, right? There's a lot of conversation around this. But I tend to sort of take a view that is sort of in a way double-sided, right? On one hand, I think the talent who are actually entering the workforce, they need to rethink how the training that they've gotten in university can match with the work that they're going to be doing. Because universities are not vocational colleges. They're universities. They're meant to give you broad-based education, of course within a certain discipline, broad-based education, strong social network, foundational skills, right? But at the same time, as I said, it's not vocational college, right? And so graduates need to be comfortable that they may not get a position that they actually trained in, right? For example, if you're a business graduate, it doesn't mean you have to be hired as a business analyst, right? It could be something else. And that's fine, and that's really fine, because the idea of a university education is much broader than just training you for one specific role, right? At the same time, I think from the recruiter's point of view, they also need to have a similar mindset in that they cannot expect a cookie cutter sort of a graduate. If I need a business analyst and a business administration graduate coming and interviewing for it, has to have all the 5 skills that I'm looking for. They may only have 1 or 2, or they may have a really great attitude, right? And they may have transferable skills,
of course,
right? And they, the recruiters also need to be open to this, right? So then this whole perceived mismatch, I think we can start to narrow it a little bit, because it's a mismatch when you think that you must have the 5 skills that I'm looking for, right? Or when the person who's applying for it thinks that I must have these 5 skills that you're looking for in a talent, right? But in reality, it doesn't work that way. Right? And I don't think it has ever worked that way, unless you are in very specific roles, like, as you say, a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer. You can't run away, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of the roles these days, it's more hybrid, it's more generalist. And people need to be willing to be flexible on both sides, from the talent and the hiring point of view.
And especially at graduate level.
Exactly.
Absolutely, where it's about values, culture fit.
Exactly. And I also think parents have a role in this too. So you find, particularly in Asian parents, when my child have invested in a college education to create an accountant, I become very upset when the person doesn't get a job as an accountant. But I think we need to take a broader, more global view. That they've got some very strong accounting skills that can now be applied to other roles as well. Right? I mean, if you think about it, fintech, data science, all those things are sort of branches of tech, finance that you can get into with an accounting degree, right? And that's just an example.
Transferability.
Yes,
absolutely. So Sumitra, as a last question today, there's probably quite a few graduates out there that are quite frankly struggling a little bit at the moment given the current conditions. So I thought for the benefit of our audience, it'd be good to ask you, what advice would you give graduates at the moment that perhaps are struggling and looking for ideas? What can they do to focus their efforts to give them a better chance of landing a role?
Sure. Sam, I think there are a few things they can look at, and some of it we spoke about earlier. For example, even if you can't get a full-time role, start thinking about gig roles, gig jobs, right? Get onto these platforms like Upwork, Freelancer, and there's so many out there, Fiverr, Cloudflower, there's tons of them, right? Start with a gig, because at least a gig will start to give you the experience. And you find that whenever you apply for a job, more and more increasingly the recruiters are looking for experienced hires, people who have some level of real experience. And coming from university, you may feel disadvantaged because you don't have that, right? But it doesn't have to be that way, right? And you don't have to wait for your first full-time job to actually start earning those experiences. You can do it on a freelance basis, right? Even if you can't get a freelance role, you can do it on volunteer basis, right? Do a volunteer project and start to build your portfolio. The most important thing is to start building the portfolio, showing that you have the skills, and start building the experience, whether it's paid experience or not unpaid experience. It's still experience and it's still valuable, right? The other thing is, I think, in something you mentioned earlier, transferable skills. To sort of take a step back, at what you've gone through in university and start to list down what those transferable skills are, right? And then to really start to position yourself in that manner that, you're open for other things beyond just what you were trained for in university, right? And, in this day and age, also I think it's important to think about continuous upskilling and reskilling. Of course. Right? And this doesn't mean that, you need to go sign up for the next master's program. It doesn't mean that. No. Because today you've got so many more opportunities. You think about all the different online learning platforms out there, right? And MDEC, we're working with Coursera, we're working with a few others, but Coursera particularly, which has a special initiative for unemployed people, right, in several countries, including Malaysia, where they're offering free access to more than 3,800 courses on Coursera. And if people were to have, if they register by the end of September, or if they had registered by the end of September, they actually get free access up to the end of the year. I think these are important, good ways of upskilling and reskilling, keeping abreast, with what's latest and what's in demand. So that, when the opportunity arises, you have that already in your CV.
Absolutely, and I would have thought good networking as well.
Yes,
because it's a good opportunity to rub shoulders with other, other like-minded people, and to get yourself noticed, of course. And it resonates very well in an interview, of course.
And of course, today you've got all the newer ways of putting yourself out there. You've got video resumes, you've got all those other things. So spend that time sort of exploring your creativity. Think about, how you're going to stand out in the job market. There are tons of resources out there. So just, and many of them are free. So just go out there and start showing what you've got. Right?
Stretch yourself, try something new.
Exactly.
Why not? Great opportunity. Well, Sumitra, thank you very much for answering these questions today. We've addressed some really important topics. It's been great fun having you with us, so thank you very much indeed.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Okay guys, so that's all for today. So if you're looking to get an update on all the great footage from today's interview series, remember to go to our website, www.letsgokinetik.com, or go to our LinkedIn page, Kinetik Hiring, where you'll see in the section below all of the links to all of our various online sources. So please remember to visit. Most importantly, please give your thoughts and feedback in the comment section in the LinkedIn section. And if you enjoyed the session, remember to give us a big thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. And finally, if you're really interested in getting real-time updates in terms of new releases, sign up to our newsletter and you get that on a monthly basis. So thanks very much guys, and we look forward to you joining us for the next session.